ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Let us pray to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us bow down to Him and pray to Him to lead us from unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate, who came to establish religion universal. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic, the 4 pillars of spiritual life. The incarnations come to our level to show us how to proceed in spiritual path. Life is very precious, very sacred, and it is out of the infinite grace of the Lord that we have got this human life. With intellect and all the senses, so that we can use them properly and move onwards in spiritual path. So it is very clearly pointed out that our purpose in human life is not to simply waste the life in unnecessary, worthless, useless, unreal things of this world, rather than using this system towards uplifting ourselves. So this is an opportunity given to us by the divine grace, so that we can move forward in spiritual path. That's the meaning of going towards the path of knowledge. So, light of knowledge is spiritual path. If you pursue spiritual way, you are going through the light of knowledge, which surely dispels the darkness of ignorance. As long as we are in the state of ignorance, we cannot avoid sufferings in life. So, we have to very clearly understand the necessities of spiritual life. We need to educate ourselves So the Mahatmas have shown us the way. Before constructing any building, strong foundation is needed, and the load-bearing pillars are required. So it is very thoughtfully given how in spiritual building up we require strong 4 pillars to support from all dangers, from all storms of life. And these pillars are really very essential for building up our spiritual path. The first pillar is Viveka, discrimination, discretion, using of intellect in a right way. So, we have to use the intellect properly and usefully. Though all of us have the intellect, but we use it not properly, use it in the different ways, and naturally get results also differently. So intellect plays very important role in the spiritual path. That's why the saints say we need to have holy company, satsang, to understand the importance of the value of discrimination, discretion. So it is the understanding or observation that is everything changing. If you observe carefully with full attention and focus, you see that everything is constantly changing. Changes not only the prices of shares that keep ticking on the screen, but also in our thoughts and emotions. For instance, you can't maintain the same degree of sadness every day, all the time. You can never be unhappy for the same reason continuously. How does it help to know that everything changes? The moment you see that things are changing, simultaneously you start thinking that the one who is observing the change is not changing. That's very important. The reference point of change is non-change. Witness. Now there is a famous Vedantic text, Drik Drishya Viveka, very fantastic Vedantic textbook. If you have not read, please read it. Drik and Drishya. These Sanskrit words are so significant, full of meaning. Whatever way you translate, it falls short of complete meaning. Well, Drik is the self, Atman, the innermost consciousness, by the presence of which we are dancing and moving all around, doing all sorts of things. That is Drik. Drik is the Atman. In everyone is called Drik. Drishya, they are everything else. Everything is a drishya, that is object, Everything else is object except myself. That means myself is a subject. Everything else is object. So myself is Atman, Drik. Everything else is Drishya. One can begin this practice by seeing quite clearly that everything external to my body is an object of observation, known by me as an object which changes. Now, what about the body? Is it an object? Am I aware of it? Can I watch it change? Yes. What about the sense organs? Are they objects? Am I aware of them? Am I aware whether they are working or not? Yes. Do all these objects change? Yes. Can I observe them change? Again, yes. Move in. What about thoughts? What about moods? What about emotions? Are they objects? Objects of observation? Do they change? Can I watch them change? Answer is again yes. But is there something in all of this, something about me which does not change? Is there something which is always constant to every thought, mood and emotion, sensation and object of cognition? What is it about me which doesn't change? What is that? That which doesn't change and is me is the Atman. That Atman is verily Brahman. Can the mind make this differentiation, this distinction, this discrimination between that which doesn't change and that which does? Yes, it can. One should discriminate between real and the unreal, and the mind should be turned away from the unreal. Now here comes the important role of mind. Mind is responsible for bringing us happiness or misery. But then mind by itself has no power to do things, but we allow the mind to do things. So we allow the mind to drift away. We lose all control over the mind. Then we repent seriously when it is too late. So, the first pillar is Viveka. By coming in contact with holy company, discussing spiritual ideas frequently, studying the lives of great saints and sages, we sharpen our intellect. The blunt intellect becomes sharpened. The more the intellect is used towards worldly things, you are making the intellect blunt. The more you are trying to understand the reality, you are trying to sharpen the intellect. So everything is in our hand. Whatever you want, you do it. That freedom is given to us. That again is greatest blessing by the Divine Lord. Out of infinite grace, He gives us freedom also. Enjoy the freedom. But use the freedom properly. For using the freedom properly, intellect is to be sharpened. Don't allow any superstition. Don't weaken yourself. Don't condemn yourself. Go forward. The way always keeps open. It's open for everyone. Every creature, every being in this universe has access to the divine path. In the domain of Maya, there is both Vidya, that which leads a person to God, to divine, and Avidya, that which leads a person away from God. Vidya is spiritual discrimination and renunciation. Renunciation of worldly ambitions, worldly pursuits, worldly things. Giving up all these worldly things is called renunciation. By taking refuge in Vidya, you take refuge in God. While Avidya, which consists of lust, anger, greed, egotism, attachment, and envy, drags a person down to the level of a brute. If you cultivate discrimination and renunciation, what will happen? Avidya will be destroyed. If you yield to Avidya, the divine supreme remains far away and suffering will be your lot. There are both Vidya and Avidya. Man has the power to choose the one or the other. And on the nature of his choice will depend his success or failure in life. And he will reap the fruits of his choosing. So from that point of view, you are responsible for anything that happens to you. None else. That's the main message of Vivekananda in his famous poem, Me Only to Blame, anything that happens. Please memorize that poem composed by Vivekananda. Excellent poem. Practice. Continual practice. Not simply only on Ekadashi day I will do practice, the other days I can go as I want. No. Then you are doing practice on Ekadashi becomes futile if you waste other days not doing spiritual practice. So, the importance of continual practice. Not simply sitting once in fortnight or once in a month. Oh, I will attend the retreat next month. That's enough for me. That won't help. It helps you, but the moment you try to understand the great help that you require, you are dragged down again to the worldly level and you lose all control over yourself. So, practice, continual practice, and Viveka are what are needed. Whatever you have to do for the people, do with the idea that you are serving divine in those forms, then you won't get attached too much. And along with all this, you must have your power of discrimination wide awake. Discrimination between the real and the unreal gives rise to detachment. So, one should retire into solitude occasionally. Solitude means not simply living alone. That's one meaning of solitude. You confine to your room, close all the doors, you are in solitude. That's not the meaning that we want here, though that is also one of the meaning. The other meaning is solitude means get away from all your daily routine of worldly surroundings, worldly atmosphere. Simply run away from that. Come to Ganges, 140 miles away. Spend the time. That is called solitude. Aratirjana samsadi, Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Aratirjana means get away from your daily routine of worldly associations. You have to do that. Unless you do that, your intellect will not become sharpened. So, retiring to solitude occasionally, practice discrimination and self-analysis, and try to discover the subtle obstacles that obstruct your path to spiritual progress. You will find that there are many subtle impressions, habits of thought and action lying dormant and hidden in the subconscious regions of the mind. Analyze yourself in solitude. Find out the obstacles, and then most important step is struggle without compromise to remove them. That means once you know the cause of suffering, you must immediately take the treatment. Simply diagnosing is not enough. You must step into taking the treatment. So, that's the meaning of continual practice without compromise. Don't compromise. Compromise is a kind of weakness. Don't defend like that. The more you defend about yourself, the more you are down in spiritual path. Instead of going forward, you are going backward. No compromise business. That's the thing. Haven't you seen the trees on the footpath along the street? Sri Ramakrishna used to say in the gospel. They are fenced around as long as they are very young. Otherwise cattle destroy them. But there is no longer a need of fence when the trunks grow thick and strong. Then they won't break even if an elephant is tied to them. Just so, there will be no need for you to worry and fear if you make your mind as strong as a thick tree trunk. First of all, try to acquire right discrimination. Break the jackfruit open only after you have rubbed your hands with oil. Then its sticky milk won't smear them. Then the neighbor asked a question, Master, what is discrimination? Sri Ramakrishna answers, discrimination is a reasoning by which one knows that God alone is real and all else is unreal and trash. Real means eternal and unreal means impermanent. He who has acquired discrimination knows that God is the only substance and all else is non-existent. With the awakening of this spirit of discrimination, a person wants to know God. On the contrary, if a person loves the unreal such things, or has creature comforts, name, fame, power, position, wealth, then such a person doesn't want to know God, who is of the very nature of reality. Through discrimination between the real and the unreal, one seeks to know God. By turning the mind within oneself, one acquires discrimination. And through discrimination, one thinks of truth. So, most important point that every one of us should remember in building our spiritual life is that we should 100% believe the presence of God. Without that, there will be no direction for spiritual life. That's about Viveka. The second pillar is Vairagya. All the four pillars are equally important for building a stable spiritual life, unshaking, unwavering spiritual life. Now, Vairagya, we have to understand this very carefully. It is not the same as apathy. It is not as being unenthusiastic, depressed, or not being interested in anything. No. Dispassion is a lack of feverishness. Be in what you desire, hope or aspire for. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, by meditating on God in solitude, the mind acquires knowledge, dispassion and devotion. But the very same mind goes downward if it dwells in the world. In the world, what is there? Sri Ramakrishna clearly, very clearly, most clearly finds out there is only one thought: dust and gold. So, Vairagya is the second pillar. Coming to third pillar, it is the sixfold virtue. Six wealths, they call wealth. Six wealths. They are very nicely described in the Vedantic texts. They are Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. These are the six virtues. All these six qualities are taken as one because they are calculated to bring about mental control and discipline, without which concentration and meditation are impossible. We don't pay any attention to these things and we think, I want to meditate. What is it? He closes the eyes and sits. He thinks that is meditation. Simply closing the eyes and sitting is meditation. If that would have been the case, everybody would have realized God by this time. It's not simply that. But you have to follow all these steps. Develop all these virtues. Become qualified. That qualification, that merit itself will take you forward in spiritual way. Acquiring merit is most important. Idleness won't do. Idleness means becoming idle, not doing anything in spiritual way. Thinking, oh, it's not possible, I am old, I am family man, I have got 10 children. Don't bring all those reasons. No. You have to struggle. Otherwise, get into next life also, and without struggling you won't get. There's the law, cosmic law. Everybody has to struggle. Even incarnation has to do tapas. Sri Ramakrishna also underwent 12 years long rigorous tapas. Even Lord Krishna also did tapas, they say. So, it is eternal law. Without struggling, you won't realize the truth. Without spiritual practice, you can't experience spiritual glory. So, sixfold virtues, one is Shama. That is tranquility or control of mind. Calmness, that is Shama. Second is Dhamma, control of the senses. Third is Uparati, renunciation of activities which are not duties. Titiksha, endurance, forbearance of the pairs of opposites. Shraddha means faith. Samadhana means perfect concentration, one-pointedness of the mind. So, these constitute one third pillar. All these six virtues taken as one. Now, Shama is serenity or tranquility of mind, which is brought about through the eradication of desires. Eradication of desires, which is probably most difficult task. The desires are like baits. You put baits for the mice, We are also mice in a way. Easily trapped by the desires. So, have intense love for God, and the mind will remain always tranquil and pure. Strive to attain tranquility. Don't give way to inertia, but struggle to gain spiritual calmness. To attain spiritual tranquility, you must keep person becomes eager to behold the vision of God. He then delights in singing His glory and meditating upon Him more and more. The mind is subject to all three gunas. When the sattva becomes established through practice, the mind always remains tranquil. Whenever you feel a predominance of sattva and your mind is tranquil, leave your work and engage yourself in the practice of japam and meditation. Sometimes you find you are in a very good mood. Use that mood properly. Go and sit and do japa. Think of the divine. Spiritual disciplines are practiced to bring purity and tranquility to the mind. If you practice japam and meditation, and the mind still doesn't become tranquil, or if you do not taste joy in God, then what does it mean? Then you may know certainly you are not practicing properly. So practicing spiritual disciplines properly is very important. Not in a haphazard way, in a half-hearted way. It won't work. You will fail miserably. If you practice japam and meditation regularly, without break, for some years, you will see for yourself what result comes to pass. Your mind will become pure and you will be absorbed in the thought of God. Then you will be reluctant to leave off meditation even for a single day. There will come an inner tranquility which will fill your heart with joy. As long as a person desires the things of the world, it is not possible for him to have any earnest desire to know God. The worldly desires are so strong and powerful, they overpower you. They won't allow you towards spiritual. As long as a child is absorbed in these toys, he forgets his mother. But as soon as he tires of them, he cries for her and is not happy till he sees her. Similarly, when a person tires of the playthings of the world, his heart yearns for God and he struggles with all his mind and will try his best to find him. He uses strong willpower. The desire to live a pure and holy life does not come easily. But know this for a certainty: the grace of God is upon all those in whom this desire is awakened. In the worldly person, he receives repeated blows. He suffers much, and yet the desire to walk the path of God doesn't enter into his heart. He knows full well that every time he puts his hand in the fire, it will burn. Yet, still he does it. Not only so, he uses every inducement to encourage others to do the same and regards that man as crazy who desists. If you have the craving for fleshy enjoyments or the slightest desire for name and fame, power and position, you can't reach God. As Nag Mahachaya used to say, it is like trying to row an anchored boat. He also used to say, it is easy to get name and fame, but holy is he who can renounce them. Hold on for a little while. Do not give your mind up to objects of desire. You must exercise great self-control in everything. Objects of desire, they will follow you like slaves. Then through His grace, you will find you have no desire for them, nor will you feel any attachment to them. So, effort must be your motto. Effort. If you want to grow spiritually. Keep watch over every small desire which arises and control it. During meditation, think that desires are worldly things. The desires for worldly things are worthless. This will leave a good impression on the mind. As you drive away the desires from your mind, good thoughts and feelings will come up. One can have that much desire as is absolutely necessary for self-preservation. The main object of self-preservation is to be able to call on the Lord wholeheartedly and to do works in His service. That's all. Renunciation means doing away with the three foremost desires. According to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the desires for progeny, wealth and popularity. A devotee accepting the dualistic view renounces all desires except the desire for God. He alone is to be desired in life. The desire to realize Him is not really a desire at all. It will not do to have mere external renunciation. One must eradicate from one's very mind any desire for lust and gold. Sri Ramakrishna said, one must set fire to one's desires. Then only can one succeed. So that's all about Shama. The next point is Dhamma, that is control of the senses. One must definitely put brake on the function of the senses. Several guidelines have been incorporated in our spiritual works. Some of them may appear to be extremely difficult to follow by all, more so in the present circumstances, when they are surrounded by tremendous temptations. For instance, it is easy to advise a person to avoid worldly pleasures beyond a limit. No one can easily conquer the influence of the senses. But what is intended to focus is that there should be moderation in one's habits. Moderation. His quest for enjoyment should be within the bounds. For instance, consuming some prohibited food will kindle the animal instincts in man, and hence he is asked to refrain from such types, lest he should turn beastly. There are restrictions on the nature of one's diet, and when a man confines himself to them, his behavior will be found to be gentle and soft. Any act of enjoyment of any kind that exceeds the normal standards will result in calamities. To explain the circumstances of such deeds, an illustration is given. A bird in need of food, after search for a long time, spotted a carcass floating in the ocean, and seated on it, started pecking its prey. In the process it became oblivious of time and place, and ultimately found that the dead body had drifted from the shore. Tired and unable to fly back, it perished only to become prey for other birds. Man claiming to possess the rare faculty of thinking and conducting himself in accordance with the moral codes, should be judicious. No one asks him to totally abjure worldly pleasures, but he shouldn't become an animal by justifying that no harm will result out of his dangerous activities, defying the spiritual injunctions. For having coveted his brother's wife, Vali in the Ramayana was duly punished by the Lord, who descended in human form to re-establish moral order. Anjaneya had the power to have dealt with him, but he was not assigned that task. A similar restraint was displayed by Bhima in the Mahabharata while dealing with the wicked forces when Draupadi was being insulted. But he left it to the Lord, who had come as Krishna, to punish the culprits and save the honor of his devotee. The law of righteousness should be strictly adhered to by studying the sacred texts, in which numerous instances of how God had extended his grace have been portrayed. If the rules are discarded, the violator will be caught in the cycle of rebirths. Be master of the senses. The body wields influence over the senses. The senses have even greater influence over the body. The body cannot exist without the senses, and vice versa. They are inextricably interdependent. Each is useless without the other, like the positive and negative ends of an electric current. Proper protection of the body is an essential duty of the individual. In this connection, the role of the senses is remarkable. The wonders performed by the divine defy description. Equally, the part played by the senses is marvelous. The senses are subtler than the body. Although the potencies of sound, touch, sight, hearing and taste exist within the body, the senses exercise extraordinary power over all of them. Joy and sorrow, heat and cold are experienced When the sense organs come into contact with external objects, without sensory objects, the senses cannot function. It is not easy for anyone to comprehend or describe the myriad facets of the sense organs. The senses have another name called Matraha. Matra is that which measures. The sense organs have the capacity to measure. How is this done? Take for instance a fruit. Which of the senses has the power to determine whether it is sweet or sour? Which sense organ decides the taste of an object? It is the tongue. The tongue determines whether an eatable is tasty or not and makes it known to the person concerned. Which organ has the capacity to declare, in the case of a picture, whether it is attractive or otherwise? The determining organ is eye. In the same way, the power to determine whether an object is fragrant or foul smelling is given to the nose. The ear determines whether a certain note is harmonious or discordant. It is because the sense organs have this power of measuring and determining the particular characteristic of sense objects that they are called matraha, measuring instruments. The senses are measuring instruments. And the senses are like horses. In the Kathopanishad, the senses are described as horses yoked to the chariot of the body. In regarding the senses, Ashva, horses. In regarding senses, horses, what is the inner significance? Ashva means that which is continually restless. It is common knowledge that a horse, whether it is running or standing or sleeping, moves some part of the body or the other all the time. The tail or the leg or the back or the nose, some part or the other is kept moving. Take the example of a peepal tree. Whether there is any breeze or not, its leaves are always rustling. Hence it is called a Ashwatha tree. In ancient times, the rulers used to perform a yaga called the Ashwamedha yaga. Ashwa means that which is fickle and restless. Medha means buddhi, intelligence. Ashwamedha means fickle-minded. The horse that is used in the yaga symbolizes a fickle mind. Whoever is capable of capturing and controlling that horse is described as dhimanta, a person of heroic intelligence, worthy of meeting in combat. Here we see the esoteric and exoteric meanings of the term Ashwamedha. It is only when both the meanings are synthesized that we get the whole truth. It is the duty of every person to control the horse-like senses. Only then can he become a hero. Whatever yagas or yajnas one may perform, whatever scripture he may have mastered, if he has no control over his senses, all these accomplishments are worthless. The term matra as applied to senses has yet another meaning. It indicates that there is divinely prescribed limit to what each indriya can experience. For example, the eye can only see but cannot hear. The mouth can only speak but cannot see. Thus each organ has been endowed by God with a specific talent. Only those who use these organs according to the divinely prescribed functions will be acting up to the will of the divine. Those who violate the prescribed limits will be going against the divine will. Hence everyone should try to use the sense organs with due regard to their prescribed functions. The nose, for instance, has been allotted a specific assignment. It should inhale and exhale air for the purpose of preserving an individual's health. The nose should distinguish between good and bad smells and take in only what is good and fragrant. This is a specific role ordained for the nose. Unfortunately, the nose is used for taking snuff and inhaling foul air. By these practices, one violates the injunctions pertaining to the use of the nose. Thereby, he commits a double offense, one violating a divine injunction and the other causing damage to his health. As a result, man becomes a prey to disease. Likewise, in the case of tongue, it has been given to man so that it may decide what is wholesome and what is bad in the food that is consumed, so as to promote one's health, to speak sweetly and give joy to others, and to communicate one's innermost thoughts to others. The tongue, which has been given for these edifying purposes, is being grossly misused today. It is used for consuming narcotics, eating animal food, smoking, indulging in abuse of others, carrying tales, using harsh words, and causing pain to others. In these ways, the injunctions of the divine are violated by setting at naught the prescribed limits. As a consequence, the person experiences numerous troubles. It is only by using the divinely given senses for the purposes for which they are intended that man can rise to the level of the divine. You should not use the sense organs as you please just because you have them. They are like horses yoked to a chariot. You must know how to handle them properly so that the chariot can be used well. The horses must be in front of the chariot. Today, on the contrary, the horses are behind the chariot. This leads to dangerous consequences. If on the ground that you should respect the senses and give them a place of honor, you place the horses in the chariot, what will be the result? The chariot cannot move at all. While fostering the senses, no effort is being made to bring them under control internally. This is like feeding a horse excessively, but not giving it adequate work. This also is likely to have untoward results. We are failing today to engage the senses adequately. They are being allowed to run amok. As a consequence, the senses are threatening to dictate to the master. So, one should be really very careful about the play of the senses, but definitely have control over them. This situation may be likened to that of a man with many wives. Uttanapada had 2 wives, and because of the differences between them, the child Dhruva had to go to the forest to perform penance. Dashrath had 3 wives. To comply with the demands of his youngest wife, Dashrath had to endure the departure of his dearest son Rama to the forest. If such difficulties can arise for those having 2 or 3 wives, imagine the plight of one who has to manage 10 wives. The mind has 10 wives. Here the analogy is taken to mind. The mind has 10 wives. The 5 sense organs and the 5 organs of action. Each organ seeks to enjoy objects of its own choice. The nose smells some good edible and wants to have it. The ear hears some sweet music and wants to enjoy it. The eye hankers after a new film. When all of them are keen about their own particular desires, how can the master, the mind, satisfy them all at the same time? Unable to satisfy them, the mind gets frustrated. How can one wedded to 10 wives get peace? It is only when the senses are kept under control that a man would be happy himself and share that happiness with others. So cultivate equanimity to control the senses. There is a method by which the demands of the senses can be reconciled and harmonized. This is by treating both good and bad with equal mindedness. There are people who display such equanimity. The example is given. Tukaram is an illustrious example. He was a very saintly person, but his wife was of a different nature. By his calmness and forbearance, Tukaram managed to get on with her. Once Tukaram was bringing home in his cart the sugarcane crop harvested from his small farm. As he was going home, the children of the village gathered round him and pleaded for a piece of sugarcane. In his boundless goodness, Tukaram allowed the children to help themselves to the cane on the cart. By the time he reached the home, there was only one stalk of cane left. Seeing this, the wife became terribly upset, very angry. So she abused Tukaram. Not only that, taking out the cane, struck Tukaram with it. The beating was so severe, the cane broke into 3 pieces. Tukaram calmly remarked, "I was wondering how to distribute the single remaining cane to the members of the family. You have solved the problem. You can keep 1 piece and give the other 2 to the children." Now how the problem is solved. Like that, Tukaram faces the situation in a very calm way. Such forbearance and equanimity can be found only in a few high-souled persons. These qualities can be acquired only through devotion and faith. We need not feel disheartened at the prospect of being unable to control the senses. By developing one-pointed devotion, the senses can be brought under control. Kabir is an example of a godly man in a different situation. His wife was highly devoted and faithful, totally dedicated to serving the husband. One day, Kabir was playing his loom, chanting the name of Ram all the time. Suddenly he called his wife and said that one thread had snapped and asked her to bring a lamp. It was noon, and when she brought the lighted lamp, Kabir told her to take it away, as it was not necessary. She silently took it back without any argument. With such a dutiful wife, Kabir was able to develop his devotion and expressed his gratitude to God for his grace. So like that, there are many instances in the lives of Mahatmas which are inspiring for us to practice spirituality with great zeal. And the 4th pillar, which is very important, is desire for liberation. Unless you have that strong, intense desire, longing, spirituality cannot be followed seriously. That means you must have that strong urge about realization of the truth. So all these 4 factors are very important to build up spiritual life, and it is ennobling, uplifting. As Lord Krishna says, Uddhared Atmanatmanam, Atmanam Avasadayet, Atmaiva Hyatmana Bandhu, Atmaiva Vipuratmanaha. One has to uplift oneself. So you have to rise up yourself. A neighbor cannot do that. An outsider cannot do that. You have to do it yourself. So you have to deal with your own senses. You have to deal with your mind. You must have that proper discrimination. You must know what is real and what is unreal. So with this sense of right discrimination and great zeal, you should be able to practice spirituality, and certainly it will help us to reach the goal. God's help is always there. His help is always available. Anytime it's available. God is ever ready to help us. Please note that. But the point is, we are not ready. There the problem. If you are ready, God is ever ready. Thank you very much. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. May the Divine Spirit protect us, guide us, give us strength and right understanding. May we not hate one another. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. May the Divine Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we work in harmony with great vigor. May our study be illuminating and fruitful. May we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.